Good morning from the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, and this is your Access and Privacy Online News Summary for Saturday, July 25th. We are into the news doldrums of summer right now, and that said, there are still stories hitting our radar. This week, bridge records, surveillance pricing, paid priority access to Truth Social, and Vatican secrecy. Let's dive in. We begin with Canadian access to information stories. Canada has become the first observer in the Global Combat Air Program, a next-generation fighter project led by the United Kingdom, Japan, and Italy. The status gives Ottawa inside access to information while the aircraft is still being developed, but does not commit Canada to a purchase. Experts say the program remains highly conceptual and is still in the very early stages of development. Key details, including possible costs, including if there's an entry fee, industrial commitments, and Canada's eventual role, have not been disclosed. This while Canada's plan to purchase a fleet of American fifth-generation F-35 fighter jets has been under a review for more than a year. Prime Minister Mark Carney put the full order of 88 jets under review in March 2025. The government has not indicated when the review will conclude or where it's headed. As a bridge opening approaches, records obtained by the Canadian press through the Access to Information Act show how officials reacted after U.S. President Donald Trump targeted the Gordie Howe International Bridge. A U.S. diplomat raised questions about tolls shortly before Trump demanded compensation and made inaccurate claims about American participation in the $6.4 billion project. The Bridge Authority quickly prepared a fact check and tracked more than 100 media reports within 24 hours, but substantial portions of the correspondence were withheld. The Bridge Authority's board members were made aware of Trump's post and later cited comments on the matter by Prime Minister Mark Carney. The bridge is now scheduled to open July 27th after adjustments to revenue-sharing arrangements. Originally, the bridge had been slated to open for June 12th. Staying in Ontario, students at 5 private career college locations have been disqualified from receiving OSAP loans for the coming year. The province cited concerns involving admissions, attendance monitoring, and whether the people enrolled in online courses were consistently completing the work themselves. However, neither the federal nor provincial government has publicly detailed the allegations. Court filings from several schools provide much of the available explanation. Earlier Freedom of Information data also showed that nearly all recent growth in OSAP grants occurred among career college students. The move is part of a financial aid overhaul by the provincial government that also involves sharply reducing the amount of grants students at universities and publicly funded colleges can receive. 3 Academy of Learning locations are seeking judicial review. City College says it may also pursue legal remedies. The owners of the Academy of Learning locations argue the concerns identified by the ministry are common to asynchronous learning programs across the post-secondary sector. LGI reporter Danielle Pittman at AureliaMatters.com reports that Ramara Township is considering a demolition estimate of more than $225,000 for 2 early 1900s municipal buildings in Brechin. Residents are nearly evenly divided between renovation and demolition. A hazardous materials survey identified asbestos, lead, mercury, possible PCBs, and mold, adding complexity to the decision. Council is expected to consider placing demolition costs in the 2027 budget and for staff to proceed with a request for information process and report back to Council with the results about possible future uses for the properties. A decision is scheduled for August 10th. Staying in Ramara, Danielle Pittman, LGI reporter at AureliaMatters.com, also reports that Council delayed a proposed change to fees for routine information disclosures. Staff proposed replacing the current time-based charge with a flat $30 fee. saying the change could reduce delays that have sometimes stretched to 3 weeks. More complex requests could still be directed to the formal Freedom of Information process. The process currently requires several correspondences between multiple departments. The current fee structure for a routine disclosure is $10 for every 15 minutes of search time. When the amount totals $100 or more, a $50 deposit is required to continue. Several counselors objected to the proposed same-day approval. They said the public had too little time to understand the change, and some residents believed their access rights were being reduced. Some counselors raised concern that a report came after the statutory notice. Council is expected to revisit the proposal August 10th. Turning to Quebec, the province's police ethics commissioner has opened an investigation into serious allegations of racist and discriminatory conduct by officers in Montreal Nord. According to the website of the ethics commissioner, such investigations could result in a complaint being dismissed or forwarded to a prosecutor who would determine if changes are warranted. Montreal police initially said 16 officers had been removed from patrol duties, but an internal video obtained through an access request described 3 officers as suspended and under criminal investigation, 3 reassigned to administrative work, and 10 transferred. The discrepancy remains unresolved. The police chief is expected to provide a public update August 11th. The commissioner's office declined to reveal details of the investigation so far, listing the need for discretion, independence, impartiality, and objectivity as reasons. However, if police officers are summoned to appear before the Administrative Tribunal on Police Ethics, that information will be made public, the office said. The ethics investigation is separate from internal and prosecutorial reviews. Community groups and opposition politicians continue to call for a public inquiry. The Red Coalition, a lobby group dedicated to fighting racial profiling, had also sought an ethics probe and filed its own complaint to the commissioner 10 days before Public Security Minister Yann Lafaniere's request. And finally, in the Canadian Access Roundup, LGI reporter Cal Braid at the Taber Times reports that only about 7 minutes of a roughly 90-minute special council meeting were open to the public, and that the meeting details are not being released. Most of the meeting was closed for discussion of the town's audit findings and financial statements under an access law exception for advice from officials to prevent disclosure of consultations or deliberations involving officers or employees of the town. Town policy says resolutions arising from closed sessions should be made available within 48 hours. As of July 14th, those resolutions had not been posted. During the brief time the meeting was open to the public, 2 items were discussed. The first was a request from the Taber Golf Club for a letter of support from the town for a grant application to update their clubhouse through the Build Community Strong Fund, and the second item addressed the 2027 Community Vibrancy Grants. The same meeting launched a process allowing community organizations to seek 2027 grants, creating a sharp contrast between public budget participation and limited access to council's financial deliberations. And because it seems they've forgotten, here's a reminder to elected officials and the bureaucrats who support them. Secret meetings, without transcripts being held to determine how public funds are being spent, don't build trust in your ability to lead or our democratic institutions. Now to Canadian privacy stories and impacts on your personal information. Toronto is exploring whether it can restrict or ban surveillance pricing, the use of personal data such as location, purchase history, or socioeconomic status to set individualized prices. Mayor Olivia Chow called the practice unfair, and the city's executive committee asked legal staff to examine options ranging from plain language disclosure to a full prohibition. It will move on to debate at City Council next week. Chow noted the city has increased price transparency in some businesses under the City of Toronto Act, which gives the country's largest city special powers to introduce consumer protection bylaws. Legal experts say Toronto may lack the authority to regulate pricing, which is generally a federal or provincial responsibility. The city may have more room to require disclosure from businesses that it licenses. Prime Minister Mark Carney's artificial intelligence strategy released last month also said it would modernize legislation to protect Canadians' personal information from surveillance pricing. The core privacy concern is the same. Consumers often cannot see what data is being used, how the algorithm works, or who pays more as a result. Next, in Manitoba, LJ reporter Maggie McIntosh at the Winnipeg Free Press brings a report about a provincial disciplinary panel involving security camera footage and disputed online messages in the first teacher registry hearing open to the public. Janice Wenying Ma is accused of crossing professional boundaries with a student before and after being fired in May 2025. She denies having an inappropriate relationship and says she made poor judgment calls while trying to support the student. The commissioner's lawyer is seeking cancellation of her teaching certificate. A decision is expected within a month and must be published on the provincial registry. An undisputed video of a May 14, 2025 incident involving Ma and the student served as key evidence. The panel was also presented with a series of Instagram messages the student exchanged with another user that day, hours after Ma was suspended from work amid an investigation. The case also raises questions about using school surveillance footage and private communications in a public professional accountability process. Next, as climate change impacts continue to create more emergencies more often, LGI reporter Nicole Goldsworthy at sasktoday.ca reports that Saskatchewan's Public Safety Agency is urging residents to register for evacuation support before an emergency. The system can collect information about transportation, accommodation, accessibility, dietary needs, contact preferences, and pets. Officials say that information helps them coordinate assistance during wildfires, floods, and other evacuations. The agency said transportation manifests can be created through the system. Hotel registrations can be arranged for those requiring accommodations. And SER can also be used to communicate with registered users using their preferred method of contact. Residents can also indicate whether pets will remain behind and require feeding. The SPSA said rescue personnel or staff remaining in the community can use that information to care for those animals when appropriate. Currently, only about 7,550 households, representing more than 18,000 people, are registered. In addition, SPSA reminds the public that seasonal cabin and cottage owners whose primary residence is elsewhere should expect to return to their permanent home if an evacuation order is issued. Emergency resources are primarily directed toward permanent residents of the affected community. The agency says the information is secure and the system was upgraded after the 2025 wildfire season. Residents are being asked to keep their information accurate and current. Moving west, LGI reporter Brooke Wagner at Medicine Hat News reports that Alberta RCMP are reminding campers and travelers to protect both property and personal information. Police say vehicles should remain locked even when owners are nearby. Keys, garage door openers, and documents containing personal information should never be left inside. Officers also warn against leaving a vehicle running while unattended, saying that theft of vehicles is a crime of opportunity. Alberta RCMP recorded 7,214 vehicle thefts and 5,134 thefts from vehicles in their jurisdiction during 2025, although both totals declined from the previous year. The advice is simple: remove sensitive material, keep valuables out of sight, and secure vehicles, trailers, and outdoor equipment. The force also suggests motion sensor lights outside recreational vehicles, and trailer owners are reminded to use hitch locks. In Slave Lake, LGI reporter Arman Kahana at Lakeside Leader reports that RCMP are seeing increasingly convincing scams created with artificial intelligence. Fraudsters can take short audio clips from social media, clone a person's voice, and use it to call relatives with an urgent request for money. Police advise people to pause, verify unexpected requests through another contact method, and be cautious about sharing personal information. Families are also encouraged to discuss these risks with older adults and young people. The privacy lesson is clear. Even a small public sample of someone's voice can become raw material for impersonation. To help cover such a massive patrol area, police are leaning on new technology to combat both local and online threats. And now we move on to United States and international stories. A Canadian woman has been charged in New Jersey after an alleged altercation with a teenager wearing pro Trump clothing, and was later transferred to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement over an expired visa. The woman entered the United States on April 14, 2024, on a visa set to expire 5 months later on September 6th. A short video of the encounter spread widely online. The video shows a woman hitting a person wearing blue shorts and an America 250 shirt twice before walking away. The woman's husband says it lacks context and that the case became politically charged after public pressure. The man said she was also assaulted and claimed her arrest was politically motivated. He also says the couple received death threats and targeted with attempts to publish their personal information. The charges have not been proven in court. The case shows how a few seconds of viral footage can create legal, immigration, and privacy consequences before the full facts are established. In a troubling example of access fees going astray, the Associated Press reports that Trump Media plans to sell institutions faster access to posts from high-ranking Truth Social accounts. The Truth PSI service is designed to deliver posts in milliseconds, potentially giving trading firms an advantage when political announcements move financial markets. It is not yet clear whether posts from President Donald Trump, the platform's most followed user, will be included. Critics say the plan raises conflict of interest concerns because the president is Trump Media's largest shareholder. The company describes the service as a way to monetize its proprietary assets. An employee at the Washington University School of Law, who is an expert in government conflicts of interest rules, said Trump is selling expedited, privileged access to information about what he is doing as president. The Trump family company declined to comment about whether the new feature is profiting off the presidency. Truth Social's public parent, Trump Media and Technology, did not respond to emailed questions, including whether the president's posts will be excluded from the offering. The broader access question is whether consequential presidential information should reach paying customers before the wider public. And internationally, the Vatican says a church trial involving former Jesuit priest and artist Marco Rupnik remains underway, rejecting a report that he had been cleared of abuse allegations. The Vatican defended the secrecy of the proceedings as necessary to protect the process and everyone involved. A lawyer representing 5 accusers says her clients have received almost no information for 2 years and have not been interviewed by the tribunal. The Vatican noted that a canonical trial concerns only matters within the Church, is carried out in accordance with canon law, and is not meant to replace civil or criminal justice outside the Church. Under canon law, complainants are generally treated as third-party witnesses. They cannot access case files or follow the proceeding, although they may now be told the final outcome due to a Francis reform in 2019, but nothing more. Accused priests also have limited rights in canonical abuse trials and have long complained about secrecy and violations of basic rights afforded to defendants in civil or criminal processes outside the Church. The lack of rights owed to victims in particular has been repeatedly condemned by international commissions and inquests into clergy abuse that have found that the Church's judicial procedures re-traumatize victims through their secrecy and opacity. The case highlights a difficult tension between procedural confidentiality and the transparency, participation, and dignity sought by people reporting abuse. Thanks for listening to Access and Privacy Online. Please subscribe wherever you listen and consider supporting the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association, or FIPA News Monitoring, to help keep this work going. This episode was written by Sean Fisk. Original music was composed by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, your host and producer. A sincere FIPA thank you to the reporters, outlets, and contributors who make this roundup possible, and to you for joining us. Stay safe and stay informed.